So as you might be watching here, I'm going to take the topic Tempest, and two important topics are to be studied with us: the pursuit of power in Tempest, and then the theme of regeneration, forgiveness and reconciliation. There are other topics in my mind also, but it depends how much time I will take to give you this lecture in short. Now, as far as the pursuit of power is concerned, so this pursuit of power is actually by various persons in the play. There are many people, many characters, and one of the leading themes of The Tempest is what? Is actually the pursuit of power. Pursuit of power को हम लोग कह सकते हैं the exercise of power. Indeed, this theme is all pervasive. Just concentrate what words, what diction, what phrases I am using, because these are the ways in which you will be writing your answers from the very beginning. Each and every line should be epigrammatic, condensed and to the point. Now, as I told you that this theme is all pervasive, several characters in the play are shown as possessing a very strong intent, a very strong desire for attaining power and for asserting themselves. Now, as far as Antonio's and Alsonio's pursuit of political and worldly power is concerned, the power which Antonio sought and acquired, what was that? That was political, that was worldly. And having been entrusted by his brother Prospero, who was the Duke of Milan, with the responsibility to govern the city, that is the state of Milan, Antonio, you all know that he became ambitious. Finding that his brother was constantly engrossed in study, Antonio began to arrogate to himself more and more of the authority, which in reality belonged to Prospero. So what happened? If you have read the story, using all kinds of unfair and crooked methods, Antonio acquired a hold upon the organs of the government and ultimately entered into a secret agreement with Alonso, the king of Naples. And according to that agreement, Alonso was to help Antonio in driving out Prospero from where? From Milan and seizing the dukedom. और dukedom को पूरी तरीके से सीज कर लेना था. Alonso helped Antonio in this all wicked plans, firstly because he had always been an enemy of Prospero, and secondly because by helping Antonio he could add to his own power, to his own authority. Now, you must have studied in this play that Sebastian का एक desire था, his desire for worldly and political power. So बाद में आपने play में देखा that how Antonio instigates Sebastian to murder his brother Alonso, who lies asleep. And Antonio succeeds in convincing Sebastian that if Alonso is murdered, the way would be cleared. पूरा रास्ता खाली हो जाएगा for Sebastian to become the king of Naples. And here Antonio shows himself to be, you can say, like a mind reader. And Antonio rightly believes that properly tackled, Sebastian would almost certainly succumb to the temptation which Antonio intends to hold before him. And Antonio fully succeeds in this purpose, even through the conspiracy between him and Sebastian comes to nothing. तो क्या कह सकते हैं लास्ट में? That Sebastian quest for power, ये देखिए हम लोग क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? Pursuit of power. So Sebastian's quest for power motivates his consent to Antonio's suggestion. Fine. So आपने देखा कि character-wise, I am trying to make you understand the ambitions and the power and the use of power and how they were basically dying for power. And Stephanos, आपने character पढ़ा होगा, Stephano का जो ambition था, that was to become the king of Prospero's island. And of course, it is true that Stephano does not know about the existence of Prospero on this island. कब तक? Till Caliban informs him about the state of affairs here. And Caliban instigates Stephano to murder Prospero if Stephano wants to become the king of island. Yes, there was a sad fate of awaiting Stephano. He becomes the object of Prospero's wrath and has to face defeat. He has to face a humiliation because of Ariel's manipulation, which Ariel carries out largely under Prospero's orders. Now here you have to also know about Ariel's use of his supernatural powers in Prospero's service, which is a very relevant point in this question, pursuit of power. Ariel had refused to carry out Sycorax gross and his earthly commands, and she had thereupon confined him to the interior of the trunk of the pine tree. And we are also told that Sycorax was a sorceress who had herself been expelled from her country by the authorities for her practice of black magic, for her practice of necromancy. Caliban was born of Sycorax's sexual union with some kind of a devil. So Caliban को कह सकते हैं that Caliban is thus the bastard son of a witch and a devil. And that is why he is physically deformed, he is morally, क्या एक शब्द आता है, morally depraved. Such then is the consequence of the exercise of black magic. और जहां तक एरियल की बात करें, he had been liberated from imprisonment by Prospero, जो कि in course of time had become even more powerful than Ariel and certainly much more powerful than Sycorax. So this you have to show in this answer. That is must. Now, as far as the right or the wrong use of power is concerned, we will witness in this play the consequences of the wrong use of power and also the consequences of a right use of power. And this is one of the most important points to get very good marks when you have to show the examiner that you are different from others. And the right use of power brings joy. The right use of power brings happiness to all the concerned and does no harm to anyone. Antonio, Alonso, Sebastian, by an unfair and foul use of their political authority, which caused immense suffering to Proper and to Mirinda. The power of these three persons was political. The power of these three persons was temporal in character. Gonzalo, आपने पढ़ा होगा, Gonzalo exercised whatever little power he had to do some good to Prospero and to Mirinda. And he also exercised his power to console and comfort Alonso in his distress. So Sycorax, by her supernatural powers, did a lot of harm to the people in her country and was therefore banished. On the island where she had taken refuge, she used black magic, and black magic she used to punish Ariel, who refused to obey her abhorrent commands. And Ariel, by those supernatural powers, merely carries out Prospero's commands. And as for Prospero, he exercises his supernatural power for the benefit of all the concerned. So, यहाँ पे, to conclude this question, you have to note it down in your mind that Prospero not only acquires supernatural powers by means of which he can control the forces of nature and also influence the human beings, but has also acquired power over himself. Prospero's conquest of his passions, his evils, instincts is a very significant achievement on his part. And it is because of this conquest that he forgives his enemies. And one important line to conclude that Prospero's real greatness lies in his self-discipline. In his self-discipline. So, this was all a detailed yet short form of making you understand the pursuit of power in the Tempest, and this entire lecture will help in many of the lectures related to the topic Tempest. Now, the second topic is even more important, which you can see in the examinations coming from the last 20-30 years, theme of regeneration, theme of forgiveness, and theme of reconciliation in the play Tempest. Now, इसको कैसे शुरू करेंगे? अगर आप कोई भी क्वेश्चन है तो जैसा मैंने बताया कि सबसे पहले द एग्जामिनर शुड अंडरस्टैंड दैट यू आर नॉट बीटिंग अबाउट द बुश एंड द वेरी फर्स्ट लाइन शुड बी ऑथेंटिक और वेरी फुल ऑफ पावर. तो आप ऐसे शुरू करेंगे, द टेम्पेस्ट हैज टू मेजर थीम्स. वन इज द परस्यूट ऑफ पावर and its consequences, and the other is regeneration, forgiveness and reconciliation. ऐसा लिखने से the examiner will understand that you have a detailed and a minute observation and the study of the play and the subject. Now, you have to make the examiner understand कि if I talk about forgiveness, regeneration, reconciliation, तो सबसे पहले बताइए the background of the act of forgiveness, जिसमें आपको ये लिखना होगा that Prospero had suffered heavily in the hands of his brother Antonio, who had helped in his evil designs by King Alonso of Naples, and Prospero, who was the Duke of Milan and had so deeply interested in the study of philosophy, the study of metaphysics, that he had entrusted the government of the city-state to his brother Antonio. And Antonio ने क्या किया? Antonio had betrayed the trust. He had become as ambitious as to allocate to himself all the powers and all the authority. He had then wanted to oust Prospero altogether from power and to get rid of him. He had enlisted the support of King Alonso of Naples, who was an enemy of Prospero. Fine. So you have to give them to understand the examiner कि कौन सा ऐसा पहला स्टेप था जो Prospero ने लिया in the direction of forgiveness. So what was that? Prospero had actually all these men completely under his power, and he can impose any kind of punishment upon them and subject them to any kind of torment and torture. But Prospero had, during the 12 years which he had spent upon this island, not only acquired supernatural powers, but also acquired the wisdom which a great sage, which a great seer possesses. Whereas we can see that any other man would have been at this time burning with the desire for taking revenge upon the enemies, Prospero is feeling perfectly calm, perfectly tranquil. And the first thing which Prospero now does is to ask Ariel to lure Ferdinand to his cell. And Ferdinand ने क्या किया? Ferdinand falls in love with Miranda at the very first sight. Far from subjecting the son to sworn enemy to any torture or any other kind of punishment, Prospero arranges things in such a way that Ferdinand becomes a suitor for the hand Prospero's daughter in marriage, and this development is welcomed by Prospero. और ये आपको clearly show कर देता है, this clearly shows that Prospero has no bitterness against Ferdinand, even though Ferdinand is the son of the man who had done great wrong to Prospero. ये इसको कहते हैं basically the fourth theme of forgiveness. Now, there is a point, the three sinners denounced and rebuked for their crime.